Yeah, so I actually have the I'm objective. I kind of twist it, and I already do the structure for introductions, and right now I just want to double check with the result and discussion part because I think I
Yeah,
wasn't 100% sure about the how can I interpret the data that I generate from our studio. So
yeah,
that's why I think I'm mainly seeking help for that because I
yeah,
don't want to just because I really do try to ask ChatGPT, but I'm really not sure about whether the informations I got it was accurate or not. So I just want to
yeah.
check with you since you have more coding background and definitely
Definitely a very good
more
idea.
more
Definitely a very
knowledge
good
than
idea.
I can get from GPT.
Yeah,
So can I just show you what I have generate so far and what I'm
please.
trying to do?
Yeah, please. Danny's here. Yeah. Yes, I can
Can you
do
see
that.
my screen?
Second. Where's me? Oh, it's gone that way. Yeah, I can, but I'm just.
Can you see both screen at the same time?
Yes, like split down the middle.
Yeah.
If I can move it up. There we go. And it'll be
Um,
a big screen now, so we can see. Instant touch to already. Okay. It doesn't matter. It's easier. Yep.
yep. So let me just briefly show you my I'm an objective so far. Since I really don't have time to do both disease, I just focusing on the stroke ones, and I just have make my I'm an objective, just focusing on we thought about this disease variation process. Basically, instead of finding source for utility online, we twisted to just finding the prevalence and then trying to generate the utility and quality out from the data. And basically, my thesis we're focusing on how we just generate this process and basically discuss the possibility and whether it's a good approach and
Yep.
how and in the discussion I would talk about maybe in the future work we can combine it as whether it is valid or not to combine it as an mobility perspective to calculate it.
I think given bringing the time down, I think that's fair. Obviously, given the discussions at the beginning, I'd have liked to have seen it for the thing, but I think also given what you're really looking at is a different approach for generating the quality of life and matching it with the so. I think my suggestion, if you taking this route, would be to so we because we this whole conversation has actually come up quite a few times in different contexts over the last couple of weeks. So and really, I think the I know let me just I was just opening my notes because I took a few notes on this. So I think really one of the this one of the real balances, and I think you probably to bring in terms of your or initially in your kind of introduction and also from your discussion is there's this real balance between having asking more questions and getting less answers. So one of the reasons the EQ5D questionnaire is very good is it's a very small single page questionnaire
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of research behind quantifying quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems you have from something like QE3 is, first of all, there's not so much research behind for using it. And second of all, it's quite a complicated questionnaire for someone to fill out who's ill.
Mm-hmm.
So this is this kind of trade-off you have between them. But the other benefit of something like the Huey 3 is actually as a methodology for giving questionnaire. It has a very large number of health states. So there's 270,000 or whatever it is versus 256 for EQ5D. So it's as a measure much more sensitive to small changes in health.
Mm-hmm.
And that really what you're looking for on this approach is, can you take a health modeling approach that's calibrated to EQ5D. So it's not so much that it's different from EQ5D, but as a methodology gives you the benefits of HUE3 without having to ask the HUE3 questionnaire. And then this multi-comorbidity side of stuff, you can also in your discussion discuss that, as that's one of the benefits of taking that approach.
I also want to verify, like, the approach we're trying to do with, like, initially for doing comorbidity. Do you mean as, like, for example, there's 8 domains, they definitely have like different severity for both disease. How are you going to choose which one we're going to be like the comorbidity model for calculating it?
So the idea behind the idea for that comorbidity model is it's much easier to combine. It's plausible to combine symptoms. So if all you have is data, so one of the other things of this, of why this data doesn't exist, is it's generally not collected or not practical to collect. So if you're looking at stroke patients, you typically get a few hundred, a few thousand stroke patients, which means you have a very small number of stroke patients or even nobody who is a stroke patient that also has a myocardial infarction. So this kind of like comorbid, and also from clinical trials, and I'm not one that was one of the ones I was missing from my notes. Also from within the clinical trials, that actually a lot of the what you have, and this is very much a health economic principle that's really important, is you have the data that's collected from a clinical trial. It's very rare that represents all the patients that will be treated with a medication. So it tends to, they tend to have other diseases excluded. They tend to be a very tight, narrow patient group, but it's enough information to say it's safe to use in this wide population. So one of the problems the decision makers have is they don't have all the data they need to make an informed decision. So this is where this kind of modeling approach comes in, is to make an estimate of the data that you don't have.
Like before, but isn't this like model mainly for the health decisions, or like the health decision process is also
exactly. So the health decision process. So I'll give you a really good example. You've got a nice new medication for fantastic phase 3 results for stroke patients. But the phase 3 trial that they did specifically excluded people with kidney disease. So you have never had any patients with kidney disease. You have no idea what the impact of this is going to be on the quality of life of stroke patients that also have kidney disease. Is there any opportunity within these stroke patients of making them any better if they already have kidney disease? How do you represent those patient groups when the trial excluded the patients, but the actual decision that you're making is, do we pay for this with patients that also have kidney disease, or do we exclude them?
Yeah, I understand that part.
So this is where, but with the approach that you're taking, with taking symptoms, you can get a reasonable estimate, given the effect of the treatment on the symptoms, on the symptoms, and on the by combining the symptoms of chronic kidney disease to say, okay, this is how much actually quality of life is going to improve. Because these domains are going to stay very low because they've got chronic kidney disease. These domains don't cross over, so they're all going to improve. That was very much off the top of my head. I'm sure there's that sort of thing is the thing that I would expect ChatGPT to do a good job of describing. This combination, why? Because the problem we have with EQ5D is because it's very insensitive to the domains. All you really have is and I was just looking for the number. All you have is a utility. or a disutility. Your utility moves from this to this when you have a treatment. That doesn't give you any information you can use to look at what happens in other comorbidities.
I think my main concern so far is not about the story we are talking about. It's more of like,
Yeah.
for example, I have the result right now. How can I say that this is a good interpretation of
Right. So
Yeah.
so my question on this is, and I don't have it directly in front of me, but I wanted to check with you. Do you have an expected EQ5D estimated quali? Estimated quali from EQ5D in patients with in an average patient with and without stroke.
Without stroke?
So what basically the disutility of the stroke. If you, I have one on my other machine. I have kind of the estimate for this on the other, but if I was wondering if you already kind of pulled one out in terms of that paper probably looks like it would do it. If that already has, well, then, so there's this one, but this is on severity. So this is broken down to patients with the EQ5D I'm looking at for on a stroke patient is based on the average of those severity of strokes. Let me go and see if I've got just 2 seconds. I meant to bring it in before. Right. So the value I have on there that we use on the model at the moment is when you have a stroke, EQ5D decreases by 0.18. So that's the average disutility. The average disutility we pulled out from there of a decrease of 0.18 when you have a stroke.
Could you share it to me as well?
It's just the number, so it's just in the thing. I don't actually have the reference side for that. But this is what I was. But I didn't want to just give a random number. That's definitely one that's sourced somewhere. Let me see if I can pull up a paper for this. We should have.
Because I thought like we're just gonna use the paper here. No, that's one. Sorry. This one.
Which was that one? That one might have had them.
The paper you just sent it to me like for the sorry, can't. Like this one. Because this already have shows like exactly a year of like the quality numbers from the.
So there's that one. So there's that paper. So it's the lines above it with independent, mild, moderate, severe. So
because I think they already calculate the quality number out from it. And like the estimate I have is like basically with all the number I generate from R, like the base case like with our mapping was like the quality of life will be this, and like in best scenario and in worst scenario there's like a range for that, and then I try to do a tornado sensitive, just see like which one was affecting more. And I think this one was
right.
like
Okay, so this is going to be the paper that you need for this. I'll send it to you in Discord now.
So what I'm talking about, like the discussion, I would just say like maybe this, like the paper you have sent it to me, like.
Yeah, but there's this one as well. So this paper that I'm sending you now.
Where was it?
So this is a study of studies of what the actual recorded utilities values were in stroke patients. So for looking at this, all the different studies.
Mm-hmm.
So this is this is so. Are you familiar with systematic review meta-analysis papers?
No,
Is that
exactly.
right? So these are like the gold standards in evidence. So when you do a systematic literature review meta-analysis, the process is you first of all find all, and this is one of the things we're saying. What you're doing isn't one of these, but what you do on a systematic review meta-analysis is you have a very narrow question, and then you find all the recent publications that try and answer or have information on that question, and then the meta-analysis is seeing how all of those different studies compare. So what you will have on this is like a search of databases. So this search of literature, Medline, Embase, Web Science Forum, the dates they did the search for the publications.
Mm-hmm.
They'll then have a process that they go through of these are the publications we're extracting data from. And then the actual results where they do the meta-analysis to say these are what we expect the results to be. So that you do actually just, if you scroll back up a second, I think it was like the top two. This one, just down. Where did it go? I missed. Just scrolls. It was on the left side. It was on the left side. Then it had like there underneath this. So where it has on this. So where this is bringing in the results. So you see this 5-1, 6-5, 6-4, 6-1. So all the different, these are for different studies. What did they estimate the utility to be?
This one?
Yeah, so if you just scroll down a little bit on this page, a little bit more, you've got like the lines that start 0.51, 0.65, 0.64, 0.81. It's jump page there, right in the middle of the page.
This one?
Yeah. So that is where it's and then this table S11, which I guess is going to be supplementary, is pooled estimates and it's an S11. So I think probably on the link for it, you need it should be like separate documents in the supplement. It should be like a supplementary material links in here.
I'm not sure like what we're gonna do for the data that's here. Sorry.
There they are. Download. It's got a download option there for the supplementary material. It's like 11 was the EQ5D one.
This one?
S11. So I don't know whether it's.
Okay.
That's
S11.
yes, it's the 5. Is it table or figure? These are figures now. I think it might be table.
This one? S11.
Yeah, it's good. Sex satisfied is where they've taken there. So these are this is for EQ5D, the values and ranges and the kind of like variation they've seen. So I guess kind of male and female, they're getting different results for male and female, for example. So average for male was 0.53 for EQ5D, average for female was 0.41. But this paper in its supplementary material is kind of your go-to for what are the results you should be getting.
From where?
from your estimate. So when you say a stroke has these symptoms, what is the utility of these symptoms? This paper is for stroke, the results you should be getting.
But like, isn't it like we calculate utility for every day, and then we do it as like
but these are the probably maybe they're not. Let me just have a look for. It's a really good point. It's a really good point. Let me just go back on this. Do I have a Q5D quality?
Because so basically I do generate it like this. Basically I got every domain for their utility value, like the prevalence for every day.
Yeah.
And then I calculated. So I got like a data set for what I have for every day, like as a utility value. And then I do the methodology for like dividing it. So like it can be like as in year, because we do a year interpretation.
Exactly right. And what I would say for the how right it is within there, and that's where that paper comes into in terms of the what you have done. Fantastic.
So basically I got like the development of like how a year wise looking it could be, but it's just gonna be like a number because we do stroke, and like the best case scenario will be like around like 0.43, and then the worst will be around 0.2, and like this is just like a range. Besides those three figures, I don't know what can I do for the analysis, and
I don't think you need much more than that, Tanya. Just Tanya's just come around just to show Tanya what you've got. I don't think,
Excellent.
And then I think mainly just like at the beginning I do like as it was suggested in the code you provide, I do an RMSE for every domains and see how like the predictions and like the real value fit. But the problem is that if we just have 2 time points, it's basically gonna be 100% fit. So it doesn't really say much about like whether it's a good, like we can't really tell anything about like whether this model make a good estimate of anything we calculate throughout the process.
Put that in your discussion. I'd run it and put it in your discussion.
So like for example,
I think that's fine. I think that's fine.
What I'm really seeking for help is that, for example, this is like the prevalence we have collected, and then we run the multiple like continue like transition models, and then basically they will give me like the number of like the conversions, like let me show. I'm sorry, I'm not sure about like how to pronounce that word, but like I got the flow charts. So basically this is like in
convergence.
It gave me like the convergence if it's y.
Convergence,
yeah, basically I will make sure like it runs to basically what I thought is like this methods, the like the BFGS you provided, it's like it gave me like a good and like estimate of like 2 time points, and it will keep running to finding the best predictions or the calculations metrics for this 2 time points to make its transition smooth. And if it's 0, it means it find like a best fit. So like, and if it's 1, it means like it doesn't have like necessarily have the best fit yet, but like you can still run the model. So I just making sure everyone like met 0 for every domain. So like it definitely run it. So it got like I'm not sure like how can we like interpret this whole process, because basically I can say was like like the model runs to the convergence to 0, so it defines the best fit possible.
Describe it, put it in. All of that's phenomenal. Just describe it.
I'm not sure if I understand it correctly, because it's mainly just I asked GPT, and this is just like the flow. It suggests me like.
So what that convergence means is, so this is it's a method of effective. It's It's a method of basically what you do is fundamentally what you do is you guess the matrix. So what this BGFS is almost certainly doing, and I am guessing a bit here, I would say describe it according. Basically what it does is it guesses the matrix. It looks to see what the result is of the guessed matrix with what it's trying to get. And obviously the first time it guesses, it's terrible and doesn't match anything like it. But what it then does is say, okay, I need to change this a little bit to get a better result. And then it what convergence means is, as it's changing the matrix to get closer to what it's aiming for, it converges on the correct answer.
But how do they know? What do they mean by like a correct answer?
So this is so basically when the error between what you want to get and what you're getting from the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
If it diverges, which is the opposite of convergence, as you change the matrix, the error gets bigger.
And the error is coming from the data we provide. So you're trying to fix.
So the error is the difference between the answer that you got and the answer that you were looking for.
But how do you know? But we're looking for something just like we don't know if it's right or wrong. Like how you. So I'm not sure how can I interpret the conversions in terms of my results. Like how can I say what it meant?
I would expect actually within all of these to converge, don't they? Do you have any non-converge? Do you have any divergent results?
No, like everything converged to 0 because I
yeah. So because it comes out. So within yours, this I would still put that in there in the description. The reason they all converge is you only have the 2 time points.
Yeah.
If you had more time points and you took in and you tried to get it to converge on more than 2 time points, it may be, for example, that the structure you need more than one matrix, and it converges initially and then diverges after a period of time. So I would still put this convergence divergence, but you didn't have that issue because you were doing it from the 2 different time points. But I would still have in your discussion talking about that aspect of it. And that basically when you're in there, you can do it from the 2 time points to get the days. But I think the rest of this is absolutely phenomenal. You're very, very close to finished on this now. But I would still bring in with the utilities that you've calculated like a quali for a year at the end.
Yes, so it will look like this.
Yeah, so to bring that in and where that comes, that paper that I just did with the systematic review, that has estimates for example on this. So these are the EQ5D scores for a stroke patient, and it should have like over the time that these were measured. So like there, for example, getting 0.62 between 0.57 and 0.67, this figure 3A. How does that compare with that graph that you just placed?
Which one was the graph?
Yours. So those 2 values, so they had like 0. Or like if you look at this one, so like stroke type, ischemic, hemorrhagic, that's C.
This one?
Yep. So this is like their score. This is the score that they've got for that. How do those numbers compare with your graph over time?
Isn't this like a fixed time point?
It is, but those are generally the values that get used. So realistically, this should be in the middle, I would guess. But how, if you just look at this on your graph, how does that actually compare? Where is this 6? Because I think you're quite a bit lower than that in your result, aren't you?
Yeah, it's not even close to 6. It just shows like it's mainly under. But like the problem is like so for HQI Huey 3 and it's supposed to be lower than EQ5D, like.
Yeah.
So it means like it's a good, I guess it's a good result as like guessing the utility we are trying to guess throughout this process to trying to see like whether
Yeah,
this is
because
good.
so you're focusing as much on. So bear in mind what you're focusing on here is where does it differ? Why does it differ? Can we do a better approach for it? I think for things like one of the things I would suggest, for example, is what happens if you take out. So you have the is it cognition or emotion, or is emotion quite small on that? What's the is it emotional domain? So is it emotion? Is there not much emotion?
I just like this is because like these two have like exactly six fits, so it doesn't really have like the best scenario or worst scenario because it match perfectly with the level, so it doesn't have like the variance from it.
Do you have the impact of the utility from the different domains?
What do you mean by like impact?
So for example, you have this ambulation, dexterity, hearing, speech, this sensitivity analysis.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you set those to 0 on your utility? So like 0 impact. So if you ignore emotion, if you ignore the emotion domain, how does your predicted quality change?
Oh, so you mean like I keep all the other domains,
The same, and then just
same and
ignore
just
emotion, ignore pain. Like, how does that this kind of like contribution to the utility from the impact of the symptom on the domain?
So what you meant is basically just with this, and we just assuming, for example, we excluding the visions, and we just assuming
it's just one all the time.
One all the time, and then we put into the calculations, and then just do it to calculate the quality outcome and to see how much it changed.
Exactly.
I haven't done that yet, but
I would suggest doing that, and I would then suggest some comparison with that. Some look at this one. So this graph that you have on the left-hand side of the screen here, with overall utility baseline since days, is absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say how much I wish we had more of this when we're doing the analysis, because all we typically get whenever of any of those results is that paper you're just looking at with that single bar chart with the move up and down, and it doesn't tell you anything about what the recovery looks like, what it's like at the beginning, what it's like at the end. This graph on the left is how it should be. What they've done in that systematic review is typically what we get. So I would for this sensitivity analysis and where this has come, tie that in with like this 0.6 that it was getting, which I would also say is probably the 0.18 I gave at the beginning. And actually I can tell you what that is, because we're 74, aren't we, for stroke? Average age of stroke 74. Average.
I think the main limitations, I think I can do another graph to just show like how the quality number would change for each domain and just see how much it might contribute to the overall quality numbers. But what I'm trying to mainly discuss will kind of be like validating whether this approach is a good approach. So I think mainly we'll need to compare our result with like the publications. And what I'm thinking,
this is that result with the publications. That's why I said that systematic review of the utilities is the publications.
But it doesn't have like the quality number, so
it does. So that if you just jump back to that bar, so what they give on this and how that's calculated, that those two bars. So what you have here is 0.65 and 0.55 for ischemic and hemorrhagic stroke.
This one?
Yeah. So that's C. What you an average 60, and the average, do they have the average there's a UK population age norms with selected correspondence, boarding Q5D, and they also, but they do have a D as well if you look at time post stroke.
Yeah.
So this is their version of that graph you just showed me.
Like the time changes?
This one, yeah. They've just done it as bar charts at discharge 4 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 months.
But like I'm sorry, I haven't really taken a look, but like the variation is because the girls and boys or the
So
sex
that variation is because they have 9 questionnaires, and that's the those are the 95% confidence intervals of those 9 questionnaires.
Do they just mapping everything to quali numbers?
That is because they are taken from actual EQ5D questionnaires.
And then mapping to other questionnaires, or
what you have with EQ5D is they have a load of published research on how to get from a answer to the questionnaire to a utility. So this EQ5D index score is between the 0 and 1. They had 9 people. They had 9 questionnaires at discharge for EQ5D 3L score. The average utility at that discharge was 0.41, and the 95 was between 0.2 and 0.6. And that's on that D. So that D is very similar to what that is basically a bar chart version of the one that you've done. Now, and what I will say with that is this is actually collected data, not the modeled data.
Oh, okay, I got it. So it's just like a form of like evidence of like how really the number would be, and like how we actually.
Well, this is how it's measured. What I will say with that is there is still significant issues with this. For example, there's 0.69 at plus 12 months. EQ5D is terrible at measuring mental health. So is that 0.69 really high because it didn't really count any mental health impact, or is it about right? And part of what you can, part of what you can look at from yours, because you're not getting anywhere near 0.69.
Yeah, not at all.
And that is at 12 months discharge. You're still at the 0.3. But maybe this is because, and this is also, what I will also say from this is, I guess this is also for things like severity. So for example, if you have severe stroke and you can't speak or move or do anything, you don't answer an EQ5D questionnaire. So you don't collect the data from those patients. So those 9 at discharge, and that they then tried to follow up, and the ones that they tried to follow up with were the ones who were capable of answering the questionnaire. So this is what I would say in terms of your discussion from as you're doing this, is what you're trying to do is try and model and estimate the data that you can't actually collect or isn't feasible, but at the same time compare that with the data that you can collect and see how what you're saying compares with the data that's actually being collected.
But this is like my main concern for this comparison is like this is HUI3 and that is EQ5D. I'm not sure how can we just say
but the thing is that they are still utility 0 to 1. They are supposed to be capturing the same thing.
I got your saying.
An HUI3 0.2 should be the same as an EQ5D 0.2. They're not, because you've got different ways in the way that it's collected and the sensitivity of it, of the fact that EQ5D only has 250 states, which is actually not that many. The thing is, if you go back to that bar chart in this publication, you actually only have 250 positions you can be on that left-hand side with EQ5D. So like if the one less than 0.41 isn't like 0.40001, it's 0.41 minus 1 over 250, which is actually, in terms of like small differences, quite significant.
Sorry, where's like this 250 coming from? Sorry.
So it's because the EQ5D has 250 states.
Okay, that's what I meant. Okay, I got it.
So you can actually only give, in total, 250 different answers.
So for HUI3, it definitely have more stages, so it could have like bigger.
297,000 instead.
Got it. Got it. So I just want, I kind of get at what we're discussing for so far. So besides the number I estimated, now I can also do excluding like different domain, and we can see maybe which one can contribute more towards the calculation of the quality numbers, and then
Yeah.
maybe we can have this guessing or like our suggestions of like which domain have bigger impacts towards the stroke of like quality of life calculation, like just towards
From
the
this and
patients.
compare that with things like that study, where that other study should also measure, have the what they actually measured in their study, and maybe you've got some going back. Maybe in terms of the things, there's some exploration of what that looks like.
But the one of the things I want to ask about is like after this estimate, we can't really say much about like my mainly thoughts for now is like after I do this domain specific for quality number, and I can get like a number wise like differences, and maybe I can just say like for example, just for guessing right now, maybe like for speech it affects a lot because blah blah blah, and then maybe I can find a paper do says like maybe like out of the symptoms speech was one of the very main issue. Would that be a good like an
Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
because I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that's a good in terms of like actually discussing what we estimate and what probably could happen in real life. Is it that's a good approach to like
I think it's an
interpret?
absolutely perfect approach. Yeah,
Because I don't think
absolutely spot on.
it will be very easily to find exactly number wise to say like the quality. It will
No,
be
but if you've got the estimates for those, you've got what's come out from your study. If you're checking that it, the name for it is face validity. So the thing with a lot of the study, what you're aiming for from this, especially, is does it have face validity? For example, hearing we know isn't is in a small number of patients and shouldn't be the major driver of quality of life. So if your actual study says it's hearing that's having the biggest impact on quality of life in patients with stroke, then it wouldn't have face validity. People wouldn't believe it. But it is proper for something like speech or ambulation, people being able to move. Maybe they're the kind of key drivers for it.
yeah, that's also what I thought. I also have like really big question towards the hearing one because since like the hearing one is like the one we have trouble finding the data so far, and then I basically have two time points for this, like
Yeah.
the for day one and like I end up like applying to 6 as a year because that's what the paper say like most of the follow-up have been done because
Yeah.
like the say in a paper it's kind of like 4 years time where like it will be really unreasonable like predictions towards a model, so I just say like as like 365 because it will be more reasonable as that's the most of the patient have been follow up for.
Yeah.
So based on the data set, because it definitely have the like 0% point because it's only time points, and then I think that's what I'm interpreting from the IMS for all the 2 time points. Ones they have definitely be 0 ones means like there's no flaws in the calculation. It just says like yeah, it does what it's supposed to done. So like it fits because there's only 2 time points. It's not possible to get out of the. It's not possible for like to compare with others like this one because we have more time point for this one. So it's possible to maybe like the estimate time and the real real data we collect is a slightly difference. That's mainly I was trying to discuss in the discussions or the results part.
Absolutely.
And for this one, I'm not really exactly sure how the model run because that's the main I want to ask about for today's meeting because I'm not sure exactly how can I interpret the results because you can see like it kind of just predict a very high up and then just slow down from the matrix it generated. So, but like I'm not sure like from my
I
understanding.
suspect that left-hand side is has something not starting at the same point, or maybe all starting maybe in one state, is it? And then splitting between them. What's the initial state for this?
I'm not sure which part of the code should I show you, but I guess this is the Q code I was following.
Yeah. So I'm talking about the thing is, on this graph, time since baseline days, the zero value is something you set rather than something that's in the model.
Yeah.
So
I give
where
them
is
the time?
that's set to this, is it? So this is because, looking at this, you have on there, for example, 10% on mild hearing loss initially, and that changes to 0% mild hearing loss at 365 and 23% normal. You've gone from normal. What I would say, is that 0% normal hearing? Not should that not be more than 0%? Or is this or is there a distribution on top of this as well, though, isn't there?
Because I think it just mainly states like how many people, like it's not like people, it's like how many like ears will like affecting it. So like the patient they selected, they definitely have like some sort of like defects on the ears already. So that's why they're calculating kind of like how they recovering so far, like the recovery. So I just use the number wise because at the first stage they selected to have like the range, and I just matching. For example, they say like the complete recovery one was at this range. I just put it back here. Yeah,
absolutely clear.
I'm not sure how can I. That's the main problem I have so far. My guess was that maybe because the 2 time points, it's like really far apart. It's not like 0.
What I would say, I think that kind of makes sense in terms of if it's a result of, that's actually kind of from that hearing as you're looking from this kind of making sense. Why? Because if it's an effect of the stroke, if it's an associated with the stroke, it clears up very quickly, or it. Do you see what I mean? It's not like this is a progressive, moving very slowly over time. You have this kind of shift as it moves from one to the other, and which is complete recovery. That light blue, is it?
Yeah,
so that normal. So you have what you have on there is like this gradual improvement in normal hearing loss, whereas the people who were severe and profound. What I would actually suggest to make this graph make more sense is to possibly trim off the 0 value. So take it from day 1 rather than day 0.
Why was that? I mean? I'm not sure.
This like all crossing over stuff that's happening weird at the beginning. Is all happening between day 0 and day 1. So this is because you have this light at the beginning on day 0. You have 0 people with normal hearing loss, and then that jumps to like 10% and climbs to 11% at day 365. So I would suggest this graph makes more sense if you just don't do 0, just take it from day 1, at the end of day 1.
Just do.
It'll make the graph clearer, and then you can see you've got your moderate hearing loss is kind of some people have a bit of recovery, and then over time it's prevalent, it's well, actually, so both of these are like the gradually recovering over time to normal hearing, aren't they? Over a 365-day period for that.
Because like for this one, I'm not sure. I just set everything as day 0. Is it like a correct way to do it?
Yeah, no. So your calculation is fine. But the thing is,
so it's just like the graphs presenting, I should just cut off.
To bear in mind, you are you start at that 0, and what you're showing is kind of like how that changes over time. So I'd say I'd just start that from day 1, because that day 1 is how as it's moved into the transition and actually started happening. So that's why you get this weird shift between 0 and 1.
Mm-hmm. So is it like I think I'm just trying to say is like whether if it's a good, I don't know, for my discussion I have to explain like, because for example I already put all the data for hearing right now, like
Yeah.
it would shows the matrix, the Q. I'm not sure exactly what should I show. Do I have to show the Q matrix, because I don't know what should I
Transition,
say?
just stick. All you need is transition probability.
So I just need to put this one, right? The
Yeah.
TPM
Yeah.
one, because I'm not sure how can I, in terms of like explaining it. So because like I'm not sure how.
It's just the interim for getting from one to the other. So just transition probability matrix is all you need to show on that. You don't need the Q
It's just
rates.
showing like how much of like this moving from one stage to other, and then just like the process of how it calculated. I'm not sure if that's there's like an sayings like, oh, it have to be some certain number so that this is like an.
No, don't need to report that at all.
No.
You can maybe do it in some. You can maybe within your methodology, you want to talk about having done that, but in terms of your results in the write-up, transition matrix is all you need.
Because for the hearing one, I mainly have issue for the hearing one, like the. Sorry, let me just show you what I'm trying to say is. Because for the transition, it like the number come up with like this. I'm not sure if that's an reasonable.
Okay, so the fix for that is this option skippen equals 999, and it'll put you normal numbers. If you just go into the code if you just go up and to the top of your R Markdown file, to the very top of your RMD, so like in between on line 18.
On 18 here.
So type options. And then skippen, SCI, that one, 999. That'll make it put them in normal numbers.
So I just run it.
Yeah, you'll just run it. That should your tables now where it has that 1E4 will now be normal.
But will that affecting my calculation for the?
It doesn't affect your calculation. It just it takes it out of scientific format and puts it in like.
So for example, for my result, I can just say like, oh yeah, it successfully calculate this number, and in the process, I think I have really big concern about like how I'm gonna say towards the maybe for the methodology wise, because I'm not exactly sure the coding or like the modeling process of how they generate it, but from my understanding, it just like they basically just trying to fit into this transition model, and before that we will calculate the Q value.
Yeah, so that Q value, what basically that table, it's not something that's ever really published or written as a thing, but that table is the transition matrix, but not fixed to a time period. So from that Q matrix, you can go to a 1 day, to a 6 month, to a 12 month. So these are rates rather than the actual transition matrix. So because we were putting them down into 1 day transition matrices to get the like daily for the qualis, but that Q matrix, and this is part of what we were talking about with these eigen and the rest of it. It's all some crazy person did a PhD on it and showed how he do it, and then we have the tools in art that we can use. We don't need to understand how it works, we just know it does. Somebody has published intricate details on how all of this works, but understanding what this is. So the Q matrix is a transition matrix, but it doesn't have a time period. It's the rate, so it's like the size. It's like the size of the movement from one to the other. So you can jump to. So whereas your transition matrix has a time period, it is from one time to the next. Is that clear?
Is there like a paper that you're talking about that was like based on that? Because I'm not sure.
Well, I guess the write-up for that is probably going to be that Markov guy.
So the
I
transition.
have so hang on. Let me find the name. So the reason they're called Markov matrices is because they were done by who is he? Who is Markov? Andrei Markov, 1856 to 1922. Famous Russian mathematician who invented Markov chains and the study of random sequences of events. Generally now, because they don't like naming, being called a stochastic matrix. I'll ping you this. So I have there's a fun story behind this. These matrices that are on this stochastic and the rest of it were state secrets until very reasonably recently.
But is there like a paper talking about this transition model that we're using, like the B?
So that I just sent you, that link is the maths to those transition matrices. So this stochastic, if you go down to the thing, a little bit down, a little bit more, this guy, that P is where he's doing the a little bit up, a little bit down. It's like a P with like a little bit down, there, this guy. So this is this transition matrix thing that they're doing. He's got a survival function of a mouse example down there as well. So this is all the maths behind it. If you want to read and go into that, I can recommend it. I love all of this stuff. But for your thesis for there, you can just give it as a transition matrix and describe that it describes the transition from one state to another. You don't need to go absolutely bonkers on the maths, but you can also do it. The maths and the paper for this hasn't really changed since this Markov guy did it in 1856. In terms of the history, this stuff was all like state level secrets because it's all the maths you need for building nuclear weapons.
So for the procedure, this is the right procedure, right? This is like the clinical stage, and I think could you just explain it again for me for like the
Q rate is a transition matrix. Only the Q rate can be thought of as it's a transition matrix, but the numbers are rates rather than actual probabilities. So they're like a rate of change of the probability. So it's a continuous time transition matrix Q. So this is why it's continuous time. So the thing with a transition matrix is it's discrete time. It's from one time period to the next. Whereas this, where you do the Q matrix, is continuous time. It's a curve, so it doesn't have any. It doesn't tell you how it changes from one day to the next. It's just the mathematical numbers, the Q values for this matrix. Now, what on earth Q values mean in that matrix, I couldn't tell you because that's where the maths gets bonkers. All you really need to, but the reason so for the thing is, and what's interesting from the transition matrix, that 0.9826.
Yeah.
Right? That means 98.26% of people with no vision field loss will have no vision field loss in one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that 1.0167 is 1.67% of people with no vision loss will get partial a day later.
Let me just go back to, so from my understanding is that I just want to know if like I understand this correctly. So from the states metrics we collected and we offer it into the systems, and it will do the art, and it will calculate, for example, like you will read the value I provide them, and then it will estimate this Q number, and this Q number means like the rating, how they're gonna
so it's rate as in speed. So probably the better way of rather than rate is continuous time. So it's the transition. It's a continuous time transitions. So continuous basically means it's a straight line, whereas discrete means you have these actual time points.
Uh-huh. And what we're getting from the Q is like it's essential to calculate the daily TPM, or
Yeah. So if you think of probably the easiest ways to think of it is if you think of the discrete. The continuous time is y equals mx. It's a curve. So it's the value of the curve. The transition matrix is the value on the curve on day one. When you look at it, if you look at it as what happens if the curve, if you look as what is the rate at 1 day at a time. So in the continuous, that q is the m in y equals mx plus c. I'm reading maths, but you know the graph for y equals mx plus c. That's a line. So it's the function for a line. Y equals mx plus c. The kind of basic one you do.
Yeah, like the
drag out. So the q in that meaning is the m of that curve. It's the slope of the line.
So it's like for the q, it's like this, or.
So the q is the slope of that line.
Q will be the slope of the line, like this one.
Yeah.
And then from
the daily
line,
transition matrix is what is the slope of that line at a daily rate. So how much does that line move on a daily basis, rather than just its slope? Because if you think of it as a flat line. If it's a flat line and doesn't go anywhere, then on a daily basis it doesn't change at all, and its slope is 0. But if it's like straight up, if you have 2 days, that goes up by twice as much as 1 day.
So does that mean, like, for example, like day 0 is here, like for example day 30, and then it will come out like the Q was like coming out with this slope of like the function we can use to calculate the
the state transition matrix is discrete, so it's the how long between one cycle and the next. So you can have daily cycles, but if you have 30 if you have 30 days, if you want like a month of 30 days, it's not just the same as multiplying all the numbers by 30 in this transition graph. Because the actual math behind it is bonkers, logistic, exponential. It gets complicated really very quickly. So what you do is you have this is the slope, and then you say, okay, how much does this increase if we look at the changes of this line on a daily basis, or how does this change if we look at it on a 30-day basis?
Okay, I got it. So like, for example, this is like the Q will give us the slope of like the transition between 2 time points, and then what daily metrics basically do is, like, for example, this is like the slope, and then this is day 1 and day 2, and they will cut and get the transitions metrics in between 2 days, and then we got the daily metrics basically, like, so
exactly,
it's like,
yeah.
So it's like this is a huge line, and we cut into like this, and we got like another slope here, and just saying like what was the transition between these 2 time points. Is that correct understanding?
Yeah, exactly. So the thing with the transition matrix is it's between 2 time points, whereas the Q matrix is just the slope of the graph at any time point.
So for in our case, like the Q matrix, we're basically just like for example, if there's 2 time points or 3 time points, it will draw like the line like this.
That's exactly what it's doing.
And for the conversions, what was the conversion doing is like to sorry, I have a little like confused up. So like for everything, this is like the Q, right? Like the slope is the Q, and the transition matrix is like cut in between and got like another.
Yeah,
like
exactly. But
it
keeps the same sort of properties, but it's basically what it does is the transition matrix is always between 2 time points, and it's how big a gap you want. So you can that when it's a curve, you can just it's for any point on the curve your best fit. But when you go to a transition matrix, a 1 day matrix is, and but if you think of it, if you wanted to say a 30-day matrix, so you wanted to do like every month, or 6 months is quite often very 6 months or a year, for example, is quite common. So you want to go to, okay, how does this change over a yearly basis? Then your transition matrix is defined for yearly transitions.
But we choose for daily transition is because, for
Yeah,
example,
we've chosen that. But what I'm saying for this, for generally for a Markov model, it doesn't matter to the maths whether you pick 1 day or 30 days in that queue. But for the transition matrix, it matters because a transition matrix is over a period of time. In our case, 1 day. Whereas that Q matrix is how it changes over time. So you can drop it, you can create a transition matrix with a 30-day time period by using 30 instead of 1, for example. But it's not, when you do it, and you should still get the same result, but the transition matrix, it looks very different when it's a 30-day transition matrix compared with a 1. Because the 1 numbers are much smaller.
So does that mean it's like with different time? Sorry, let me stop this. Sorry, I'm just not sure if I understand this correct, so I'm just gonna reinsure again. So for the matrix we do, or the daily transitions, I initially thought we do a daily transitions is because that's what National Health Model might potentially use.
We chose daily transitions. So we chose the daily transitions, but we didn't. It's not a fundamental requirement that we have to choose daily transitions. We could have chosen something else. We could have a lot of for example, a lot of them So and actually the easiest way of looking at it is that paper where we were just looking at the bar charts. They've basically chosen they've changed at least probably 4 month cycles. They've done it on they've done 4 transitions there over 12 months. So a quarter, so every 4 months, I guess. So they've done that is like a 4-month transition where you have at the beginning, what is it 4 months later? What is it 4 months after that? What is it 4 months after that? And that would be I think it's 120 day, 3, 6, 9, about 120 day. That would be like a 120-day transition rather than a 1 day. And it jumps from one to the other, and you could have a 4-month transition matrix rather than a 1-day transition matrix. Those 2 matrices would be different, but the Q matrix would still be the same.
Because the time point is the same.
Exactly.
So the Q matrix basically just like this, but the transition matrix we choose is just how much we want to cut in between those slopes.
Exactly.
So it doesn't really. Okay, I got it now. Okay.
And we've just done a very simple approach for it. So the maths for this, as simple and as lovely as it looks, gets insane very quickly because these are all actually log functions hidden in a number. So you start running into this all this exponential logarithmic math really, really quickly with these guys. But actually, as an explanation and what's going on, it's very clear and easy.
So we don't really need to talk much about how this model was accurate or not. We're just saying oh, this is the model we use and this is the number we got, and it's successfully run it, and this is the result we got, and how we're gonna interpret it compared with other results we have in the publications. Mainly, that's the approach we're doing, and then sorry, I just reinsure everything again. Just say when I was writing, I got it. So this doesn't really need to say anything. It just the slope of that, and then this is the cutoff point we choose to look at, and then but I just want to check it again, for example for the TPM, it doesn't means like, so every day this number will change. This is just showing like the
Those numbers stay the same.
stay the same, but like
Those
follow
numbers
this
stay the
pattern.
same, and what happens is that tells you the percentage of people that move from one state to another every day. When it's a 1 day. If it was a 30 day, it would tell you how many people move from one state to another after
Every day,
30 days.
every day, right? Like, so every day, like this number would, like the actual prevalence would change, but like it followed this patterns to change, right?
Exactly.
So that's just showing the changing process of like this matrix, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So from okay. So in terms of like the describing, let me see. Go back. Okay, I got it now. And so for the result I have so far, and for this I can just say like whether it fits perfectly with like the real number or not, and this one we just show like the transition, and we can't really say much about. Can we just say, like, for example, I think I'm just mainly worrying about the hearing parts. Sorry, the alarm is keep like ringing. So we don't need to say whether it's valid or not. It's just because this is the math we got. We just say like this is what it is showing us. Like,
I think that's fine as what that looks like. If you know, and I think that also in a lot of ways makes a lot of sense. You know, if you have people, if the hearing loss that you have from the stroke, you do actually see some recovery from it. That's what the recovery looks like.
Maybe it just shows like how. So like for example, sorry, keep showing the wrong page. So it just show like this one. It just shows like more like graphically how this change over time, and then saying like how different severity can change throughout the time, and it just shows like, for example, the faster it change, it just show like it can recover faster, and for this one it might take longer time periods to recover, and potentially my guessing is that if that's the case, maybe in the comparison graph we can see like maybe with progressions, like those domain can have like more impact towards quality of life since it takes more time to recover between stages. Maybe I'm just guessing I'm having so far.
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, so for results, besides those things, so every domain I will shows the prevalence, and then the mappings, and then this two graph, and at the end I will just do the quali numbers.
Yeah,
and
so the quali numbers, don't forget to get that look beautiful one with the curve in with the higher and lower that you were showing me earlier.
You mean
that one? I think you just jumped past it. Was it higher up? Was it?
Yeah, I have one asking suggestion for this one. So this is the utility value we have, and there's one more I generated. It's more I don't know if it shows here. Like it's like it's like it's more of like, because I feel like
the one looks prettier, and it says the same thing.
It's the same thing. Yes, I don't know if it's better if like it's like 0 to 1 or like. I feel like maybe
I would force, if the other one isn't, I would force it between 0 and 1.
Just change this one.
Yeah, I would.
Because
and I'd also make sure you're allowing it to go less than 0, because I think that worst case should probably be less than 0.
I don't think it's
Huey has negative qualities for sure. So I don't know if that graph, when GPT's pulled it up, it's got a limit in it. So that limit there, that scale, that's limiting it to 0. So I wouldn't limit it to. I think it's about minus 0.5. I think is the lower limit for Huey 3.
So should I just go for 0.5?
Minus 0.5.
I'm just gonna do this real quick.
I'd put those limits on.
Because the graph, I was all like maybe because I think the graph is just like it shows like the surface. I don't know.
Huey 3 daily not found. Possibly needed something else running higher up. You've got the errors at the bottom there, so object Huey 3 daily not found. So it's probably been called earlier at the top, and just because you've been running other stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think you've got that covered.
Um, so in terms of the graph, I was saying because like since the quality was like utility times the year, I was still like maybe like the overlapping of like the what shows more like about like how the quality number was being calculated. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like
Which one are you talking about? This graph on the right?
no, it's like the one you said probably not the best to use.
I think it says the same thing. That one with the dotted lines and stuff. It just looks just nicer to look at. That's I think that's my only comment on that. Nicer to look
because
at.
I thought like maybe I was trying to do something like that, so like you can see like the shading of like differences or something like that. I don't know if that's
So I mean that's if you're in terms of that's the way that's normally described, but I think that that is how the quality exactly how the quality is being calculated, but it's nicer to have the clearer lines because I don't think it's up to you. I actually I get the reason you want to do it, but you suggest doing it that way. It's nice it's a very nice way of explaining it. I wonder whether what I would actually suggest though is do your lines like that for that graph, and maybe include that in your methods, and have like quite a clear definition of quality at the beginning of your document using that graph with the A and B side of things.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Sorry, can you say it again?
So that graph, the pictures you were just showing on the webpage, you just did like a search for images. This guy's. So you were saying like this one on the left is kind of like what you were aiming for.
Yeah, like time
right.
and.
So that graph gets used absolutely everywhere. Mm-hmm. You'll see there's lots of things. I would put that in your I'd put maybe your introduction in terms of quality, but bear in mind on what you're looking for what you're actually looking for on this is actually not this, because this one is a with and without intervention.
Yeah, I just want to do it as just like best, worst, and just like maybe like the shading of like that's
shading the difference. You're entirely your choice. From my comment, the first graph looks prettier, but I absolutely get why you would want to do the second one. Entirely your choice.
I don't think it's showing not bound, quality sensitive, somewhere not bound.
Yeah, I know exactly that feeling. But I think don't try and solve that now. I think
but this one will work as well. So basically my result.
Nice because what I like about this one is it shows. This is showing, and you can see this one actually goes negative. So what this one shows is kind of what I am looking at here is the average stroke patient versus a severe stroke patient versus a mild stroke patient. That's what I think I'm looking at here.
But this is like all the domain combined together. So like, like probably like the worst severities and the better severity that can have. Yeah, I think that will.
I think that's what this is. And now I don't think those green and red lines particularly capture that. Maybe they do, because I would expect a mild stroke to go closer to 0.7. Well, we actually had that table, didn't we? The one, you had our paper of the different levels of severity of stroke.
Different level of severity of stroke?
Our paper, the paper you opened at the beginning that had like the different qualities.
You mean the paper you sent me, or?
Yeah, well, not the one I just sent you, the one you opened first. Yeah. So like for that there, so for example, these are like the utilities of a very severe stroke. So versus it being mild, but these are at three. Is it what is this? This is at 2 months after stroke and 6 months after stroke.
But from my
So these,
understanding, it's not like how severe the stroke is. It's more of like how severe the symptom is. So I don't think it just says like.
this is the BI. So this BI category is how is a stroke severity index.
Oh, so it do capture the severity in this index.
Yeah, so this is for an independent. So it's basically somebody who's had a stroke but is independent. This Bartle index. When we're talking to one of the others, apparently there's two different versions of this. It should be like Bartle between 0 and 100 or something, I think. But those are the like classifications of the severity of stroke. So independent is basically you've had a stroke but you're otherwise walking and talking. They are like 76 to 0.76 to 0.81 as their line, versus the very severe, which is 2 months after stroke they're minus 0.14 and 6 months after they're minus 0.11.
Mm-hmm. So do I have to compare like in like the numbers?
So these points here are like five different lines, almost like 5 different lines on this graph that we were just looking at, that you made with the blue and red and green lines with the shading in the middle.
I don't know if that counts. Yeah, I think it did count because we do the severity and when we mapping towards the HUI3 questionnaires.
You've got like for your thing for an average stroke, you have like a distribution of the severity of the stroke. For like this is like an average stroke patient that you're calculating, isn't it?
What was the question again? Sorry, I didn't.
This that on the left is like an average stroke patient.
Yeah, it's just like normal stroke. Only the patient only have stroke, and like they do a study with like stroke and adding this like mainly with the symptoms there.
Yeah, so it's not subdivided by the severity of the stroke. It's just the average stroke patient. Some of them are very severe, some of them are mild, some of them are independent.
Yeah, it's just like for example this stroke, and then you just capture this same stroke type of patients, or like just stroke and patient in general, and with like mainly focus on hearing loss, capturing the severity of hearing loss in this like stroke patient. I think that's the data set when I was collecting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you've got the other domains on this one on the left though, don't you? It's not just hearing loss, these.
Hearing loss.
The one on the left.
The one on the left.
The stroke Huey utility quality. The one you just flicked off of. So this stroke. Your graph, just to quickly come back to your graph of the one that's in the R studio.
Oh, this one?
This graph that we're looking at here, this blue line in this graph, that is an average stroke patient, I would guess.
It just means like, no, I think it just means like, for example, like this one, it have for vision loss, for example, they only have 3 stages, severity stages.
But the line itself. So this line itself over time is like an average stroke patient, the utility of an average stroke patient. This isn't the utility of a severe stroke patient or the utility of a independent stroke of a mild. It's like the average of that patient. Within that, you have 5 other lines of these would be the average severe stroke patient, these would be the average mild stroke patients. Do you see what I mean? That is made up of this line is made up of a distribution of how many strokes are severe versus how many are mild.
when you say like stroke severe and mild, then it means like the symptoms more severe and mild.
So when the stroke begins,
Mhm.
so when a stroke begins, for some patients, it's like they barely notice it. It's like I've got a really nasty headache, and turn into I've had a really nasty headache all day, I can't get rid of, and they go into hospital, and hospital's like, the reason you've got a headache is because you've got a blockage on one of your arteries, on one of the blood vessels on your brain. We need to decoagulate it. So they're otherwise okay, but they've got like really nasty headache. You then have the severe stroke patients where they're lucky if they survive and end up with severe brain damage. So, and that's from the day one stroke severity. And then what you're doing and what you're looking at on this blue line is the average of those patients from the distribution that you've got. Whereas that paper that I've shown, if you go back to if you go back to ours, that table is what does it look like if all of 100% of the patients are independent, 100% of them are mild, 100% of them are moderate, 100% are severe, 100% is very severe at day one. So, and if you look at this, what you see with how this changes is like the independent patients, a start from 0.76, climb to 0.81, but the mild guys actually end up worse at 6 months than they were 2 months. And in fact, the mild and moderate end up worse at 6 months after 2 months. The severe and very severe do improve, but not by much.
But how can we compare that? I mainly thought about like just comparing the overall quality numbers.
Yeah, so the overall quality number is the other thing to compare. So you've got the overall quality number is one thing to compare, and so this these those actually on the DRGs of the A of the CB and A are like mild, moderate, and severe.
Mm-hmm.
So the qualities in a mild, moderate, and severe patient. So A is like very complex. A is like stroke very complex. C is like without. D doesn't have anything because they die.
Sorry, I just want to reconference about this part because I think for the best case and worst case, it's just like when we are mapping, we can't.
Yes,
really...
it's a sensitivity analysis. It's not the other patients. That's fine. So this is the best and worst. This is like the up and down versions of an average stroke patient.
Yeah. So I don't know if like we can just.
And actually, if you switch back, you can calculate this value from those, because you do have, if on our table, if you just switch, but just go back left, you have number of patients in table 1 on the A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
So this is 103 patients with 0.685, 248 patients with 0.353, and 178 patients with minus 0.19. The numbers I'm reading from there is that what you've highlighted says number.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also got the percentages in. So that's the distribution we used for the stroke in ours. And then the line under that is what their quality would be of those individual, the quality would be of those different patients. So the average is just 103 times 0.685, 248 times 0.353 plus divided by whatever they are, all do it by the percentages. I'm probably jumping ahead on maths. Then I hear the silence. But do you see what I'm saying there for how you calculate
the quality number out from it? I still need to calculate the number in order to compare with my result.
Right, but yours there is an average quali patient.
Yeah.
Is an average stroke patient.
Average.
From that table you've got highlighted there, you can calculate the quality of an average stroke patient in our table. And I'll do this now. So hang on, let me pull my RStudio up because I can do this. it's doing a weird thing with, where's my RStudio window? I have to do that, and then I can do window, move built-in display. Goes this way, then I can switch back to your window, and then I can come down to come left to console place. Right, so our average quality is 0.18. I'm typing in the wrong place, 1 second. Is 0.18 times. I'm on Tanya's laptop. I need ABC. 0.18 times 0.685 plus 0.43 times 0.353 plus 0.09 times, no, wrong one, 31. So 0.31 times minus 0.019. So our average stroke patient had a quality of 0.2692. And I'll copy the formula I just did to calculate that.
So it means like, but it just says like then my calculation was higher than yours. It doesn't capture more than.
But don't bear in mind that's it depends. You can compare that though with the distributions. Maybe our distribution is different than you used. Our quality will be lower or higher if more of them are mild or severe. So that's part of what you can do with this comparison with the numbers. Do you see what I just did then to get the average patient though?
Where did you put?
Let me just post it in as a thing. That's the formula I just used for ours. Oh, it doesn't like the star. Hang on, let me change my stars to X's. So actually, I don't need. I can do that. I just need to put it in these little guys, and I'm there. That's the actual formula.
So then this will be like an average, like my.
So that's the quality of on that paper. What we ended up using, even though we didn't specifically report it, of the quality of an average stroke patient, because we had 18% mild with a quality of 0.685, 43% moderate with a quality of 0.353, and 31% severe with a quality of minus 0.019.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's not a good calculation that I've just put there because I've lost 9% of patients. So mine is lower than it should be. And that needs dividing by 0.91, I guess. Because I've missed the 9%. It's not really 18% because we're just looking at alive patients with this, aren't we? We're not looking at the ones that are dead. Or maybe it is. No, that's the average stroke patient, including death. You're not including death. So all of that needs dividing by 0.91. Divide by 0.91. 295. I got. I just copied the answers of that in there. I get this. This gives me. I'll show you what I did. I divided it by 0.91 because it's out of 91%, not 100.
Okay.
Which gives us a quality of 0.295. And you were what, 0.32?
Yeah.
Really close.
But how can I just say? Can I just say like, the number is close, then it means like it's a good estimate.
It's not a terrible estimate. You didn't say it was 0.1 when it wasn't, but I'd look into where they come. I'd look into how they compare. So, for example, you've got a distribution in yours of mild, moderate, and severe stroke. Are they similar?
They're all like normal. There's no. It's not like. It's like an average. It's not like I separated with like severe, and it just like the symptoms was.
Yeah, but you can divide them into that from your. You do have severe symptoms, mild symptoms at the beginning. You do have. You can categorize them into those different groups. You do have like how severe the symptoms are, for example. And it depends how you define. It depends how you categorize them. So I think that kind of comparison, you can look at different ways of running them out. But again, I can see really clearly this is spot on in terms of the numbers, and I think you will where you are at in this project now, and it's one of the reasons stuff like this becomes lifelong passions. I don't know whether it becomes your life. Is there's always something you can do better. There's always something, and there's always something you end up finding, or in a conversation of this is the way we've done it. This is where we've got the results from. I think it's in terms of the rest of the things that you do. One of the most important things that was said to me was, don't argue with my conclusion, argue with how I came to it. So the fact that you've got all of this like really nice, this makes sense, these things are the ways that are coming down, it's much easier to see with your approach that what's happening makes sense than from our paper where it's just listing the numbers. And you can compare what you've done with that like systematic review within Stroke where they've actually like probably, because bear in mind that was just our model, there's references for those are the numbers we pick. It's not your actual better reference for that. The better reference for the utility of that is that systematic literature review. But you have both the systematic literature review and the modelled version table that you can approach to take it, and you can look at how they compare with your approach, bring it in and say, where are its strengths, where are its weaknesses. You should make this approach because it makes everything much more transparent.
Can I just talk about like how I thought about the discussion will be, and just wondering if we're on the same page? Because right now I got the average for the stroke patient, right? My initial thought was like this is like the what we're trying to do this approach. First one is like it can capture more severities throughout times, and the second about is like I think it can be possible to utilize on the disease that doesn't have any quality numbers or any like quality of life questionnaire, like any data set that was being measured. This is like a new approach that we can go for to see if that can actually calculate something that can be useful towards like calculating quality. That's the two main aspect we're doing for our thesis.
Absolutely.
And then so my approach was like because we already know, like I already found a paper saying like stating comparison HUI3 with like quality with EQ5D, and they do say like HUI3 would definitely will like possibly be lower.
Bear in mind though, what I will stop you there. That is that one that's comparing QE3 with EQ5D is very different to your approach. Because they are asking QE3 questionnaires. You are modelling quality using the domains and the estimations of the symptoms.
So I can't compare. I initially thought it was like comparing my quality number with like the publications that have stating quality.
Absolutely. So your quality numbers for the publications and where they're different, and where they're the same and how similar they are, that's absolutely what you need within your discussion. I would question how relevant a HUI3 versus EQ5D paper is, because that is the questionnaire. So you have that within you'd expect it to get lower. And I think that's a perfectly valid statement to make within your discussion. But bear in mind that that's from people asking the questionnaire. You aren't asking the questionnaire, you're using the methodology to model the quality of life.
But can we say like we interpret like our hypothesis of like the number supposed to be lower, like the way we modeling this
The
supposed to
number
be.
should be the same, because there should be the same. But one of the reasons it may end up lower, and this is what I was saying, the differences between that difference in that paper, this is what I was saying at the beginning with regards to EQ5D, answering EQ5D, pretty much everybody answers an EQ5D questionnaire and answers it completely. The problem with the Huey 3 questionnaire is it's quite big and complex. So you have a lot of people not answering it at all, or not answering it completely. So you end up with a lot of missing data because you've got more questions, and the questions are more complicated. So the fundamental problem, the EQ5D as a questionnaire is a better questionnaire than Huey 3, because EQ5D is simple and easy to answer as a questionnaire. And getting complete data when you ask a questionnaire is really important for getting valid results.
But I thought we choose Huey 3 is because he can capture more symptoms-wise. That's why
We've chosen Huey 3 because it's a better methodology for estimating quality of life.
Yeah, then.
But you're not looking your questionnaire, and as that questionnaire came, and that what you have is how these symptoms interact with quality of life. But you're not asking the Huey 3 question. You're not giving the Huey 3 questionnaire to people.
Because I'm just matching the symptoms to the level.
Exactly.
I think
You're matching the symptoms. So you're modeling. You are modeling quality of life using the Huey 3 methodology.
Yeah.
That is a very different thing to asking people the Huey 3 questionnaire.
So it won't be applicable for me.
So the paper that's looking at asking people the Huey 3 questionnaire, I'd question how relevant that is to yours, because that's asking people the questionnaire. They have trouble with that. That has a problem of people don't answer the questionnaire. But with your approach, everybody's answered the questionnaire. You have fully modeled all of the dimensions.
But like the questionnaire I choose for each domain, it could be different. It doesn't really matter because I thought like it just needs the severity. For example, like for the emotions, they might have like using SF9, like SF9 because it's a better one to capture emotions. That's why I choose that for severity. So it's like all different kind of questionnaire.
Absolutely.
Mapping.
Absolutely. So what you're doing, what you're building here is a model of quality of life based on symptoms.
Yeah, and my hypothesis was saying like it's supposed to be lower than EQ5D ones because it captures more symptom-wise.
I would agree. I would generally agree that probably in terms of that, I would expect it overall to be lower.
So mainly I just comparing my hypothesis, like the quality I generate with EQ5D. That's mainly the comparison should be at.
Exactly.
And it's not gonna, but like for, I thought about comparing with HUI3. It's like, I thought like maybe I quote that, like I cited like paper related to that.
Yeah, I think it's worth. That's definitely worth a citation in the discussion. I think it's
just
really
saying
relevant.
like because we use the HUI3 like questionnaire as the modeling, like in other comparison with HUI3.
As the basis for your parameters of your model.
Yeah, so I don't know why can't I compares like the. So from my understanding, like for stroke patients, they already have paper to compare like EQ5D and HUI3, and HUI3. I thought like maybe because it also capture more symptoms when they are doing the questionnaire, so they do have like a lower quality of life, or no, it's supposed to be like they should supposed to capture the same.
Well, it's all the different aspects, because when you talk about the Huey 3 questionnaire, be acutely aware that it's a questionnaire being asked to people.
Yeah.
And that has its own implications with regards to answering the questionnaire when the questions are complicated and when there's more of them.
But isn't like
So if you,
the methodology we use, we're still starting from the questionnaire? Then
yeah, but your questionnaire is giving you the parameters. But the parameters that you're using for that Huey questionnaire don't matter whether this is stroke, MI, whatever. It doesn't matter what disease it is. When you take your approach, you're modeling on the symptoms, where your parameters for the symptoms are from the entirety of the studies that have gone into Huey 3. Whereas if when you look at stroke, you are not you don't have
I got it. So one is like I just simply capture the symptoms, and the number is nothing to do with the
disease itself.
Disease.
It's the symptoms that it's modeling. Yeah, exactly.
Wait.
That sounded like
Wait,
an
wait,
aha.
it's so complicated. But like the
Oh,
number we
I-
capture is like the severity, but like the severity, how they classify the severity is based on the questionnaire. Then
Yeah.
how? Oh my god. I'm a little confused about the discussion. How can I, besides the numbers?
I would
know-
focus. I would focus on what we've talked about. So comparing it with EQ5, comparing it with EQ5D,
But
comparing
like
it with the results.
I can't say it's better estimate or worse estimate. It's just saying like it capture more aspect.
Well, so yeah, it's so it's not so much about a better or worse estimate. It is a nicer estimate because how it's arrived at is much more transparent. It is a nicer methodology because you can combine diseases that you can't do with EQ5D utilities. Because your methodology that you've taken here is very easy to combine if you are looking at severity of stroke and MI, or I don't know, stroke in patients with kidney disease.
So basically, for validating or discussion my result, I think that's the main question I have to ask so far, because from what we're talking throughout the process, it's not much of like the number I can compare. Like for example, I do probably can find the number for quality numbers of stroke, like average stroke patients, and just to say like, oh, it was like
so that part of it just becomes a footnote in your thesis that you know this does make this possible, and it's transparent, and you know I would cause it, the way I would describe it is a feasible approach.
Yeah, so I can only say this is a feasible approach, like at least like the calculations, everything, it's possible to generate through the R.
Feasible and plausible, yeah, exactly.
And then in terms of like validating the value, I think that's the main concern I have so far. Like I don't know what can I say for example.
So within yours and what you've done here, focus on this one that we just got. So we had 0.295 from ours using EQ5D stroke severity. And you've got, for example, 0.3. Your like worst of that is 0.21, and your highest is 0.43. So it's so that 0.295 is well within is looking at that from there is like just under, that one is kind of like just under your blue line.
Yeah. So the model, like the paper you guys have, the number is like below the, then I don't know what can I interpret that. It's just saying like, yeah, it's below, and
this is why you have that sensitivity analysis, because that sensitivity analysis is if you pick the worst value. So you, for those when it's worst and best case, it's probably going, you know, your thing is it's realistically it's going to be somewhere in between those. From the approach that you've taken, you don't know exactly where, and you can just say, you know, this one for the stroke, the estimated value was 0.295. That is, you know, put the dot in, put on the graph I'm looking at on the right top, so where it's got the scenario 1 year quali. Just put maybe a dotted line for that publication of where the 0.295 is.
I mean, this one, like after I calculating
a reference after calculated from that was 0.295. Just put a thing of where that landed on your thing. Done.
So it could probably just like, for example, it compares, it can be like around here and just showing like, so it's like if we choose the worst case, it like maybe it can have like a higher like impact in terms of like actually capture like because this is like the like you do the same approach and that's the number you got, and then this is like my approach, I do got the number I got, but
Yep.
since we're doing different approach, I don't know how applicable like in terms of like
Yeah,
comparing
you don't need to. Just that they're in the same. Just that they're in the same sort of range. They don't disagree with each. They're not statistically stiff. They're not massively different from each other. The range that you've got in there is well inside the range of those values. Probably your biggest gap at the moment is probably the biggest like further research is on further defining where these sit from the where the EQ5D values actually where the EQ5 where the severity of symptoms actually sits in the range where it wasn't a clear mapping from one to the other, because that's what you're showing on this quality analysis table, isn't it? It's where you assumed it was a certain Huey3 answer.
Mm-hmm. So for suggestions, so like my discussion, we're just mainly talking about like the first thing I can talk about is like this like estimate I have is like a reasonable number, because compared to what you have, it's like at a similar range. It's like a reasonable estimate. Can we say that? Say like
Yeah, absolutely.
and then after that we can discuss in details like okay, maybe for example like in the worst case it can capture more of like
It gives you the capability of estimating qualies given only symptoms.
I think it is like the discussion part. I don't know like how would that how can I evaluate more? Just to say like I basically have this approach.
So
I
I
can't
discussed.
really
So within
say.
your discussion on that, I would have this domain impact on utility. So for these within the stroke, what is given what were the domains you estimated to have the biggest impact on stroke? Do they make sense? How does this compare with that? So if you look at the thing is, you've got this range that's defined here. You've got that other paper. You also have that systematic literature review that gives the range for what the quality of a stroke patient could be. So how does that compare with the systematic literature review, where they've been through the asking the questionnaire approach rather than yours, which is not asking a questionnaire, it's modeling it purely from observations of symptoms?
But a lot of that just be my guessing then. Just like oh maybe this
Yeah, but it's not just what your uncertainty comes from your guessing.
yeah, but like when I'm comparing with other publication, I don't know like because there's no like actually like right or wrong towards like calculating
Yeah,
quality of life.
absolutely. There's no, the thing is within and that is actually counts towards what you're doing significantly. Really counts to what you're doing. Don't the value of not having to ask those, to be able to get a good estimate for the quality without having to ask thousands of questionnaires and still get very similar results.
Okay.
Where you've just taken the tables of these are what these look like, to bring into it and to not only that, but be able to combine multiple diseases by just say it purely from combining the symptoms that you have when you have people with multiple diseases. You have you're not necessarily saying you completely you're not even saying you necessarily replace EQ5D questionnaires in the studies. What you are doing is providing a methodology to give a
approach.
good estimate of what that would be when you don't have that data.
And then probably this methodology in future work can be applied to comorbidity as like this is like an issue
It can
for
be
not
applied in
having the
all the
data.
different. 1 second. Tanya, I'm on a call. What are you screaming about? TC, stop.
As long as sign it.
But you just keep screaming, Tanya. Stop.
Okay, I understand.
Tanya's shouting at her sister. Sorry about that.
So
Them two are like sisters.
so what were we saying? Um,
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Yeah. That's what I say. You're really, really close to all of this. It looks phenomenal. It really does. It's really nice to see it reach this point.
and for the discussion, sorry, I just really
Yeah.
spoke up because I still have like exam on this week, so I just want to clarify this. So after exam, I can like continue writing this.
Yeah.
So for the discussion at the commability, I just want to double check with you, like this approach that can be applied to commability, because commability also have the same exact problem of not having enough like HUI like of like enough like questionnaire data to do the quality estimate. So
Typically speaking, typically speaking, the way to bring that in is with it. Phase 3 clinical trials typically exclude all comorbidities except the disease that the treatment's looking to intervene in. So if you are, for example, you are stroke patients, the phase 3 trial will be, and it may not even be, just general stroke patients. It could be, for example, severe stroke patients. So the phase 3 clinical trial will be exclusively severe stroke patients with no comorbidities. So the questionnaires you get collected are exclusively in that patient group. But the decision makers need to decide, can they give it to any stroke patient?
So there's like a missing gap in between. So it's
So
like,
you end up with a
is there
lot
like
of
a
missing data.
paper specifically talking about this, or it's more?
I'm sure there's lots. It's a well-known problem. So
Okay.
so there should be
So I
plenty of
can,
publications and stuff
as
like
like
that.
a future work, when we applying these methods, it can at least provide an estimate of like if that happens in comorbidity effect. So like when people are going through like clinical trials, when the government was like going through the documents, they can have like an at least like a reference of like what's the possibility if there's like a comorbidity if our approach this like methodology.
Absolutely,
I got
and
it.
you know, I'm generally excited across because there is the ones we're talking about. We're just scratching the surface on the data availability within, particularly within quality of life, is a significant problem. Not least because the best we have is EQ5D that doesn't capture most aspects of quality of life. So you know where you run into where you.
So that's its discussion. So I just want to, because this a lot of we can talk about. I just want to focusing on like the what we can actually write it down. Like so, I just trying to summarize the of what we are talking today. So the first thing we can talk about the discussion. So it's definitely a number. We say like the number was like in a reasonable range. It's not like far apart from what we are expecting. And then second of all, we can discuss like which domain may have like a bigger like impact towards the total quality of life, and that's like this is like a fundamentals for the comorbidity base. So because like the bigger impacts towards the disease, they then maybe like when you compare to other disease, you can choose the one that have like maybe like for stroke you have like speech and some domain have like greater impacts toward quality of life, and the other disease may also have the same thing for their domains, and we can combine the most impact domain for each and to do it as like a calculation for comorbidity for the comorbidity aspect. And so like the utility value we calculate will be like, for example, we select data severity data for speech and stroke, and then maybe for the emotion we select the severity for AMI, for example, and then we do the calculation as the estimate for both estimate as the estimate for the comorbidity scenario, and how this quality can be calculated as, so it can be like as like an estimate for comorbidity quality, so that when document being sent we do this calculation for them, and then we can show that's the effect of the quality, and then it can maybe somehow do the decision making. That's the idea of all that in the future work. And then for now we're just focusing on the if like stating our facts, we can just mainly talk about this is a recent approach, and we compare the numbers, so we can find number for general stroke quality numbers, and then it could possibly be like around 0.3 up and down, and then we can I think that's the main concern I'm have right now. I'm a little unsure about this part. Like, how can we interpret, because there's no right and wrong. So like, the battery and like capture. We can only say like maybe EQ5D captures last aspect of like what we are trying to
So the thing
validate.
with EQ5D is pretty much the gold standard for collected data demonstrated improvement in quality of life.
Yeah. And then our approach maybe use the HER3, it just like as a methodology to capture more symptom wise, like severity symptom wise, severity.
Exactly. So, and the thing with, but the thing with where that falls over is that only works when you have a collected EQ5D questionnaire, which actually, in most circumstances, you don't have that.
Mm. What do you mean by that? I just want to make sure I understand it correctly.
Right. So,
I'm so sorry.
come back to, for example, I'll give you a good example. You've got a stroke medication for I'm forgetting forgetting the name of it now, but for severe stroke. So you've got a study that's been done for a medication that helps people recover much more quickly when they have a severe stroke, so that they recover back to almost full health.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that was a massive phase 3 clinical trial that they did, and they showed, okay, this is our impact on stroke patients. And that phase 3 clinical trial excluded any kind of comorbidities.
Mm-hmm.
And was only in severe patients.
Mm-hmm.
And they collected EQ5D in those patients, and that's what you have EQ5D from. And the payer said, okay, this is great, we can use this.
Mm-hmm.
Great, we've got the EQ5D collected, we've got everything done. But when they did that, they didn't collect any data, EQ5D or treatment effect or anything, on patients with kidney disease who had a stroke. So you also have kidney disease, like kidney failure,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a stroke. They are a group of people that exist. So initially, when it comes to market, it is exclusively having kidney disease is a contraindication for this medicine.
Because we don't know
because you don't know if it's safe to use. So no EQ5D was collected, no EQ5D was collected, no efficacy data, no nothing when the initial trial's done, when they do it with all the EQ5D and they do it on a big group of patients. 5 years go by, and now they've actually used it in a few patients with kidney failure, off-label. They've collected data on that, and they now prove that it's safe to use in patients with kidney failure.
But initially they didn't collect the data.
But you didn't have that data. But now all you have is it's safe to use in patients with kidney failure. You now do not have any EQ5D quality data on what the quality improvement is going to be in those patients, because you have no data collected in them. All you now know is it's safe to use in that patient group. And the decision maker still needs to do is the improvement in quality of life going to be worth it? Or are they so ill from the kidney disease that actually this treatment isn't worth using in this patient group because it's too expensive? Or they need to bring the price down to use in these patient groups? Because the pricing is general pricing is based on how many qualities you gain from the treatment.
So like, for example, like the normal procedure they have for medication is just like they capture for one disease and they capture like initial and after, like they calculate the quality like changes out from it, but they might have discrete the effect of other comorbidity affecting the quality as well. So for example, like the first year when the medication was launched, they only do for this certain disease, and maybe a few years later they would do it for
another one, and other ones for those can be and the two ones those typically happen in are disease severity. So initially most medications are approved only in the most severe disease, and then they creep into the less severe. The other one is also age. So maybe, and this may also, patients, initially it's only in patients over a certain age. And then they actually say, well, actually, when we did this and we were doing the trial, we kind of excluded anybody that was under 50. But we do actually have quite a sizable patient group who are under 50 that have this treatment. We'd like it to be, you don't have to be over 50 to get this medication. Or things like obesity and stuff like that. So it's what you have typically to repeat that, typically when the EQ5D is collected in a trial, the trial itself will exclude any kind of comorbidities. So even though EQ5D is being collected, it's never collected in these patient subgroups. And even if it is collected in those patient subgroups, you probably didn't have enough patients to really kind of make any strong conclusions. Maybe it was a trial with 3,000 patients and there was only 2 patients with kidney disease.
But I think that would be a little too more too for the future work.
Well, what
but
I'm
like
saying
for
on here is the thing that these are kind of, what I'm talking about here are not necessarily tied directly to your results and your results and your conclusions of where they've come from. These are very much about the relationship between your methodology and its applicability within a decision-making context. So you don't need to within the discussion, you don't need to prove any of this stuff, other than to suggest this is the kind of place that this may end up being useful.
But like I think I need to talk about the limitation that for our and
Yeah, so limitations is the other one. Well, the first and most obvious one is it's not collected. You're not using collected questionnaires. It's a model. It's not used collected questionnaires. So, and the second one of this, that's the first kind of part within the discussion. The other part of that, which we were talking about already, is there's no real right or wrong answer. So actually drawing that, whether it's the right or wrong answer, and what I would say for that as a particular problem, and it's one of the things that how EQ5D ended up becoming the best, even though it has so many problems, is it may have these problems, but it's still the best way that we have.
then what can I say in the limitation?
What I mean by this is what I mean by that specifically is the approach that you're taking here. I'm sure as you think about different things like having to assume how the mapping within your thesis, you have to assume the mapping. Well, that's a limitation of your model.
Because the mapping is more of like my decision to how to.
Yeah. So it's an assumption, so that's a limitation, and there's different What I was going to say is that ways to address that would be further research, investigate what the real mapping should be for symptoms, to apply it in different kind of, it's not been, it's a second limitation within what you've done with this at the moment is you've only done this and shown this in stroke. It's not that doesn't mean there aren't other hidden problems if you try and take this into other diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and MI. Maybe there's aspects of those diseases that you hadn't yet considered.
Is it possible to say like the limitations of like the population for the paper was being documented, or is there also a limitation because, like for example, maybe different paper they have target different populations? Could that be like a limitation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, like ideally, we should supposed to find a paper that was talking for the same exactly like around the same range of the population and age.
And the other thing I would actually say on that that's possibly a limitation, as we were just talking about, those I don't think you did separate matrices for disease severity. You just made the one for each of the domains, didn't you?
Yeah.
So whereas that paper that we just looked at had mild patients got progressively worse, whereas severe patients got progressively better.
You mean like when we were collecting data, we didn't verify like how severe the stroke is?
No, I mean so the actual disease. There may one of this is that's probably one of what I've seen so far. That's probably the most important limitation that would probably going forward need more attention. Is that the disease progression itself can depend on other factors that you haven't considered when you've defined these matrices. And you can see that already in the fact that you have these matrices that get progressively better or progressively worse for a stroke patient. However, we know some patients are one way and other patients are the other way. So some patients get progressively worse, some patients improve.
I'm not following this one. Can you?
Right. So the I don't know if I'm on the. Let me bring the. I don't know if you've got the screen share. Let me see where that is. Zoom. If you just switch back to our paper, this one.
Yeah.
So this top, be independent, mild, moderate, severe, very severe.
Yeah.
Right. You for your symptom severity, you always for example, your symptom severity has a matrix for progressing from for let's say ambulation, the movement. So you have that matrix for ambulation. I would guess probably that is always moving to a distribution that has more ambulation. But actually there's a dependent, if you look at our table on that, the progression of how quality changes over time actually depends on how severe your stroke was at the beginning. If you were a moderate patient, you will be lower 6 months than you were after 2 months. Whereas if you are an independent patient, you will be higher after 6 months than 2 months. And that isn't something you've directly considered in these in this change in transition matrix. It is something that you can represent, but actually in terms of the model that you've built and the numbers that you're doing, it's a limitation that isn't something you directly considered as you built it. It's fine that you didn't. It's not entirely. You see. The thing is, part of this as well, if you look at the confidence intervals for these, that although the average number decreased, the actual 95% confidence intervals haven't really changed that much.
So does that mean like our models we only consider from first of all severe. There's 5 stage. We only consider like they can switch between 2 stage, but like maybe you can stay between like 3 stages. For example, you can become severe to become suddenly become very healthy. But like we only consider severe to moderate, moderate to mild, mild to healthy. So we completely miss the possibility of like suddenly become really healthy and suddenly become very healed.
Exactly.
That would be like our limitation towards the modeling part of our consideration. We didn't consider that much of like very complex scenario of like recovering process. So that can be our scenario for like maybe
although you have the methodology in there to consider that as it's a limitation of your model that gets very complicated very quickly and you didn't dive into. Absolutely.
But like we can, in the limitation, we can talk about this. So, but like in terms of how we can improve it, because when I was talking to my supervisor, he keeps saying like maybe I should compare our methodology with others' methodologies to say like maybe what we can do to improve that, and maybe that's the part we can improve and get.
It would be lovely, you know. One of the things we have with it. I will say I haven't seen anything close to this in terms of methodology. It's basically the closest we've come to in other methodologies is you pick the minimum disutility, and it's complete nonsense. So if you can find other similar ones that have done this, I'd love to see them, but I'm really not aware of anything that's taken an approach like
I
this.
think like the approach we can do for comparing the methodology wise maybe is there like the chance, because I'm so sorry, I really have limited knowledge for the modeling. Is there like a model other modeling like talking about like transition between consider more stages, or it's just like the same transition model but like we change the
So all of the standard ones of those I paste are in the should be pinned in your UCL. Let me just check it's there. I'm on Tanya's laptop that has a
no,
Discord.
it's just like for example we consider like that's the limitation and how can we improve that. Does that have to, it's kind of like I'm really worried about this question
Right.
because
So if you in UCL on in the UCL channel under pinned, the first pin is a link to National Health Model. It's
yeah,
4
I know
papers.
that that's the paper you sent it
So,
us
so
like
that is pretty much all that covers pretty much everything goes away. So the main other ones for this are the discrete event simulation stuff.
but we are using the Markov
So
model.
Markov. So that's discrete event is an alternative to Markov. You can actually think of. I had a whole argument with one of the other guys on this. You can actually think of a Markov model as a discrete event simulation model, where changing state from one state to another is the discrete event. So that
So like
change from one
Markov
state to
can also use this.
Markov. What is nice about the Markov models generally get used everywhere for all of these for a few reasons. First of all, you can look at those transition matrices themselves and say, do these make sense? You can't really do that when it's a horrible mathematical formula.
Mm-hmm.
They have been shown time and time again to actually do quite a good job of modeling the actual numbers and capturing these processes.
You mean like when we select Markov is because you have like a really good mathematic base of like calculating the transition between two stages, so
Exactly.
that's why we just choose that. If we want to change but like the scenario we're talking about right now, it's just like we have set a like a more easy scenario. Maybe we should set a more complex scenario. What I'm saying is like, can we still use the same model but just
I think so. I don't think you need to change anything because the approach it's this approach of what you're doing there with that model is modeling the symptoms. So you've just taken it from you've shown it from the Markov model. This is how we do the modeling of the symptoms. Maybe there's certain symptoms that are not suitable. And that's one of the things I was saying with other diseases. Maybe there's other diseases where the modeling of the symptoms would be better done with discrete event simulation, for example. Good example of that is good example of ones of those within cancer when you have breaking bones.
No,
so you have cancer.
So for our scenario, like as a stroke, it's discrete events. From my understanding, discrete event is like it's more separated, like individually, like.
Basically, what a discrete. So a Markov model is this transition table. So you have within a Markov model, you have a transition from one state to another.
Yeah. And
a discrete event simulation is you have a mathematical formula that defines the probability of an event happening over time.
So like discrete was like they pick certain events of throughout the time, like for example like first year of like stroke and then second year of the stroke at certain time point.
It depends how you define what you mean by an event. So one of that was used before any of this well before any was used within healthcare, where that would mostly be used for is, for example, in a machine factory to predict when a drill is going to break. So the event is a drill breaks, and you want to replace the drill before it breaks, but you don't want to replace it more often than you need to. So they would do the model for this is how the probability of the drill breaking over a certain period of time. So this is the optimal time to replace it, where you're not going to have a drill breaking and destroying it. And you're not replacing it too often. Within hours, for example, within National Health Model, everything National Health Model does is actually discrete event simulation. These are these finished consultant episodes. So what we do for the event is the finished consultant episode, which is turning up to a hospital with an event. And what we have is a formula that determines how likely that event is to happen over a period of time.
But how can you use that if we are using multiple model to
So, well, the thing is, so you're talking about symptoms. So, for example, a broken leg would be an event. So, a broken bone. And there's a lot of cancers that affect bones where you make it very likely that you have like broken limbs while you have the cancer, because it decreases your bone density.
So do we have to talk anything about National Health Model in my thesis, or just mainly focus about like the quality comparison?
I think you're mainly focused on the quality, yeah.
And just for the validation part, like for the discussion, like the limitations, if there is no like actually like a comparison for the I believe like our method approach, like this methodology approach, is more like a new things. If there is nothing similar that I can compare with, what can I write in the limitations to do like more like reference based like comparison? I think that's the main.
So I would look at the where things are in there, and I'd think about the think places where you've just had to assume. So, like you were saying, maybe the limitations you didn't that's a perfectly valid discussion in your limitations, that maybe there are better methodologies for predicting the progression of symptoms. Maybe there are the second part of that, these limitations where you've had to assume a mapping for the Huey utilities that that's not really founded on evidence, it's founded on your best guess. So part of further research is maybe the studies could be conducted that actually look, what is the actual map, what should that value be, what does the evidence say, is it actually going to be? I think you've got
So the limitation, sorry, I just want to summarize the limitation part. So mainly I'm just going to discuss, is there a better possible way for us to capture the prevalence of the severities?
Yeah.
And because even with like the best, like the stroke we still have like problems with like selecting a good numbers of like the prevalence of each severity numbers. Can we just say like this could be a limitation towards other disease if they have more niche disease? It can also be a problem for not having, even we use this approach, it's not possible to get enough data for us to build up this model to do the predictions.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So for the future work, it's more of like, so we can't really compare the methodology I have collected from mostly was for comorbidity, but we can't really compare it with the approach we have so far because
it's possible. One of the reasons I absolutely love this is this comorbidity is possible this way. Even with an assumption, you can get a result that has face validity to it.
It's just like, even though we don't know if it's accurate or not, at least it can be as like a reference for decision maker.
At least you can look at the numbers and say, this makes sense, I understand why it is this value.
And
whereas all you have is a stroke is minus 0.18 and an MI is minus 0.14. How do you go from those two numbers to a stroke and an MI in a stroke patient?
Okay, I get it. So like it can still be stated as like but like we didn't do any more.
We didn't do the comparisons, but it's entirely it's entirely feasible to take that approach, because with this approach you can look at that and look at what you have for, because this transparency thing I think is also really important, that it's really transparent where the utilities are coming from.
So our model focusing right now mostly is like at the severity capturing, like if we want to improve or not, like for more solid, more accurate estimates, like for the limitations, we can improve is more of like how we can more precisely calculate the severity change between times, and also how we can getting the severity data, and then
Exactly.
whether it's a good approach for other disease to utilize, if that's the initial problem we're trying to solve, is like for those disease we can't find the date, we can't have the quality numbers, can we use it for them, then limitation can be, say, like for niche disease it will be impossible to do this approach, and then for a more general one it can be good to use as like a comorbidity base if we want to try to consider more possibility. But all of this, like towards the quality numbers, like we don't know, there's no like right or wrong answer, it just like give us like the authority like a suggestion for this could be possible.
So what I'll say in terms of a right or wrong answer, and this is what I was saying before, we don't argue with my conclusion, argue with how I've come to it.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally the right answer is the one where even when people disagree with your conclusion, they can't argue with how you've arrived at the result, and there's no better way to arrive at the result.
I think I'm a little like mushed up with like whether my discussion should be like improving the methodology wise, or just like how we gonna interpret it, the value, like, because
I think it's both. You've got the how, you've got the discussion around you've got some discussion around the limitations, you've got the discussion around what you've found, the how it can be used, the situations where it's useful, the situations where it's not useful, and then when you come into the limitations, what the limitations is much more about why could what you've said you think is true might not be true. What limiting factors could actually influence. So one of the biggest limitation in that is you've had to assume this mapping.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're actually ending up much higher when you actually collect the data for what it is, and when you do the study on those, although you're saying you assume, okay, this is great, maybe it ends up being the other way around when you do a better data collection rather than just your assumption.
So maybe I can find like whether it's like a better severity mapping towards HUI3 models, like if there's any methodology towards that. If not, then it will be like a huge like a limitation towards my methods. I have one question. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have one question towards like when I was looking at my results. So mainly like with the 2 time points, you can't really say much about like RMSE paper like graph, because it will definitely matches because there's only 2 time points. It's impossible to be off the charts. Is it reasonable for me to make a suggestion, like maybe when we are collecting, like for improvement, maybe we should find more time points so that
absolutely,
so that we can have like a range, and then
it's
supposed to be like a better estimate towards that. If like this method we can't find more time points, then it will be like a huge limitation for our like methodology wise as well, because then it will be like making, even though the model can give us the number, but you can't really very trusty about that because of this approach we take. We didn't have much time point to make a better model, like in terms of like ideally what we wanted it to be mainly. Okay, I got it. Okay.
That was a lot of absolutely. I really think you've cracked it. It's been another long one, but I think this has been a really productive. Great to see kind of where this has come on, and I think it's
So like,
looking good.
okay, so just like for my result, there's no like right or wrong for like this graph. It's just saying like how fast and how severe it changed throughout the symptom level, and just like this is like the result we got, and then we discuss mainly on the discussions, and then for the methodology, just saying like we use more like in the we will talk about like the methodology in discussion, but in methodology we use relatively more simple, like the coding. I just want to check, like we do just consider between like simple stages. We didn't consider like from severe to, because in the matrix you can still see like the, even though we consider that, but there's still, oh wait, what's the matrix, you can still see like this is like maybe this, and it would turn to like most severe symptoms though. I don't know if that's because isn't that the case? Doesn't my question make sense?
I think this is, I'd actually say in a lot of ways what you're talking about here is really a strength of what you're looking at rather than limitation, because what you are doing a phenomenal job here of defining the quality of life in stroke patients in a way we've been doing a lot with stroke, and in a way that I've never seen done this well. And I'm actually really looking forward to this domain thing, because it's one thing to say I think these are going to be the domains that have the biggest impact on quality of life. It's going to be another to see that actually with a kind of evidence-based, transparent evidence-based approach to get those values. So I think that, as much as and even within that, the thing with a model is you can always build a better model. You can always put more time into it. The constraint is always we don't have infinite time to do everything.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like it's not the feasibility plausibility time. I think one of the things, your direct competitor for this approach is collecting the data.
Sorry, I just want because I'm running out of time, but like I have one question towards the metrics, because in our previous discussion, we say like our modeling was expecting like only from mild to it doesn't jump between two stages. It only transition between one stages to two stages to another. Like it won't jump from severe to mild, basically. But like in the matrix, it do shows like, for example, like no vision loss.
But the thing, the matrix. So the assumption when it's calculating that Q matrix is there's only one jump. So the Q matrix, and if over the time point, the where that's important is if over the time points of the data that you've collected, people actually move from one state to another, your Q matrix and Markov matrix end up being wrong.
What does that mean?
So say, for example, you have two time points, one at the beginning and one in 4 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, over 4 years, most people who are recovering are going to have jumped through more than one state.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So your beginning and end, they move through more than one state. If you're looking at 6 months, probably you do have some people who move through two states in that 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
The calculation ignores those people.
We only calculate from, say, like, because the first time point it's severe, and the second time point is mild. We just assume they jump this, but the possible between this is like they can turn from mild, severe, and go back to moderate. We didn't consider that part, but in order to improve that, it means like we need more data for that in order to do
more
that.
Data, more time, more data, more time points.
But that would be a limitation because we can't get that much data for now.
I'd say within the studies of diseases, that kind of like studying within patient registers and things is actually quite common data. But like, it's not necessarily published in literature, but existing within healthcare services. So maybe it does exist, absolutely.
So it's just like maybe like the source of data we use, we can switch to more like like clinical data instead of like
Exactly.
publicate.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I have one question. I think I have one question. Like I think mainly for the population part, because I think that's the main concern when I was like thinking about when in terms of like the he like HUI3 like utility value.
That's actually something I will also say is a limitation. Is you don't have age dependency in here or gender.
It's just like very general. We use very simple approach, but there's a lot of things that can be improved in our models.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
a lot of part was like the population we select it, because like the paper, it doesn't necessarily focus on one populations. This can be like different population. Then our model would be like very general of like what could possibly happen in the whole world, but not like in certain countries. Then it will affecting the decision making. If we are trying to use it in a UK base, then probably we need to find more UK based populations. But
Absolutely.
it will be really hard to find it for now. So maybe we can connect
Yes,
it
I
to.
think that that in terms of the limitation and the things of there, but I think it also that's something absolutely you can bring it. So I will, there is a lot of it's actually been one of the things we've been backwards and forwards with. So about probably 6 or 7 years ago, we were starting doing analysis of patient registries. So patient registries are basically data sets that the clinicians collect on their patients. So they kind of monitor the patients themselves and to do the analysis of like basically so the clinician understands what's happening with their patients. And there's loads of these patient registries around. They get funded by industry quite a lot because they're but I don't know how aware you are on how the industry works, but you're basically not allowed in any way, shape, or form to bribe clinicians to use your medication. So you can't that even to the point of it's actually slightly different here, but within the UK, for example, like marketing materials, like printing a pen with the name of a medication on, is like in the UK, like you're not allowed to do that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Here they do actually do it, and they kind of they give them these little pens and trinkets, and so you're not allowed to like give them stuff or like buy them watches or like any of that kind of corruption. But what they are allowed to do, for example, is fund a patient registry. So they give a clinical department money to spend on a patient registry so they can monitor their patients, and that's the way they make the clinicians like their medication. So there's loads of that happens kind of globally. And outside of that, the NHS UK and the NHS actually has a lot of research institutions that collect a lot of that sort of stuff themselves anyway.
So can we just say like it might be possible if like we got the access for the data that we needed to improve our model, but for now, like as we do as like an proof of concept for what we are trying to do.
There is another thing in terms of that discussion. The EQ5D questionnaire isn't free; it's quite expensive.
You mean for people to do that, we need to pay them to do